Hi, everybody. I'm Melissa Lynn, the owner and founder of Dwelling Creative, a marketing agency for builders and architects. And today I am so pleased to introduce Laura Ryan, who is the homeowner of the imPossible house. We're going to talk about some of the struggles that she's having. It's a project that's ongoing and some of the delights. And I'll let you introduce it. Laura, go ahead.
Thanks, Melissa. Yes, the imPossible house. So I call it the imPossible house because pretty much everyone that I speak to about it tells me that what I'm trying to do is impossible, which sometimes is a bit of a deterrent, but I'm very determined to get it done. I've been working on it for a couple of years now, and the reason that it's impossible is because it's on a super small block. So I'm on only 104 square meters, and I'm trying to take it completely off grid. So 100% off the grid for solar, 100% off the grid for sewage, and 100% off the grid for water. And, that would be kind of easy if I was on a block out on a farm or not in the suburbs. But I live right in the middle of the city. So I'm very close to the Sydney Opera House, which I think Melissa's going to show you. And the reason that I wanted to do this was because I want to live sustainably. But I think most people live in the city, and so I needed to figure out a way for all of those people who live in the city to go off grid. So we all can't, move out to the sticks or out onto a farm. And if we're going to be sustainable, we have to figure out a way to take all of these existing properties on really small blocks and turn them into sustainable houses. So what I did was I found the worst possible house that I could find, one that's facing the wrong direction in terms of like solar passive considerations. It's got really tight access, so renovating is going to be difficult. And then obviously it's on a really small block, which makes everything else even more difficult. And the idea is that if I can do it on this impossible block, then anybody can do it. And I'm really trying to, document this process so that it's not as overwhelming for other people who live in the city on small blocks as well, and just really provide a step-by-step guide for anyone that wants to do this as well.
Very cool. So I put together a map so people can kind of get an idea of where you're at. So the Sydney Opera House is here, and you're basically right in the middle of a downtown area. What's the history of that neighborhood that you're in?
So I'm in an area called the Inner West. So I guess it's kind of known for progressive type people, or a more derogatory term is hippies, I guess, maybe. Which I'm one of, so I think it's okay to call us hippies. And our council is actually quite progressive, I think, compared to other councils. So I've been really lucky to engage with the Inner West Council, who's really supportive of this project. And I think if I was in a different area, then I probably wouldn't have that support. So I'm very lucky, I think.
Did you move into that area with this project in mind?
No, I just liked the area, and I liked that it was close to the city. And Newtown, the suburb that I live in, it's got lots of really great restaurants, and very easy access to the city. And I can go out and see theatre and go to comedy shows and great restaurants, and it's all within kind of 5-minute walking distance. So yeah, I really like the vibe, I guess.
Excellent. So how long have you been living in the property now?
So I bought the house in 2016, but really seriously started the project about 2 and a bit years ago.
All right, let's go through the house a little bit so we'll get people oriented.
So this is the back. So I guess this is the perspective from the extremely tiny courtyard. And you can see the jacaranda trees, which I love, overhang the house, and they provide great shade in summer. But you can also see that they drop a considerable amount of branches and leaves, which clog up the gutter. And the other problem is that I'm going to need to, once I get rid of this roof line and do the renovation, I'm going to have to fill every single square space of my roof with solar panels, which means that I'm going to have to trim those jacaranda trees back a little bit as well. So, and you can see they've got a bit of a lean on them. So most of their growth is actually over my house. So I'm going to have to, I think, talk to the neighbours about how that might work for them if I'm going to, be looking to trim their trees back, which is, not really something I want to be doing, but I have to balance out the, solar panels versus trees kind of equation.
Yeah. So on your website, you mentioned as a step-by-step guide for other people who might be looking to do this, that you should start with the water. And why is that your recommendation, and what are the struggles that you're having with it right now?
Yeah, it's definitely the most complicated part of the going off-grid solution, and it just requires so many moving parts. And when you think about it, so you've got to have the water tanks, then you've got to have grey water recycling solution, and that usually involves like UV pumps. And then you've got to have, a first kind of initial filtering process before it gets to the UV part of it, and then all those pumps that you need to move the water around the house, from the recycling to the actual storage to the potable water from the roof. All of those things need space, and so if you can figure out the water solution and at the same time work with an architect to integrate it, I think that's the very best solution. And then you also have to work, if I'm going completely off grid, I also have to figure out how much electricity that water solution will use because of all those, those pumps. And so that solution then has to work hand in hand with my solar provider as well. And we have to be really, really efficient with the electricity usage in the water recycling as well. The other part that actually I found as I was going along was really difficult to think about was excess water. So the problem that is obvious on the surface is that I have a really small surface area and I need to capture a lot of water, and so I need to have lots and lots of water tanks. So pretty much wherever there's some space on the ground, I'm whacking in a water tank. But then there's excess water that I need to deal with as well, and that includes stormwater. And so, the brief is for no water to leave my property. And the fact that, sometimes there's hardly any water coming in, and then sometimes there's a ridiculous amount of excess water when it really, really storms. You've got these two extremes that you have to deal with. And on such a small block, that's quite complicated.
So what are the solutions so far, or the ideas about getting rid of excess water?
So the solution at this stage that we are looking at is, one, to remain connected to stormwater drains until we figure out what to do with the excess water. Yeah. And then the other is to try and figure out how to increase the garden space so that we can direct excess water onto that. But even then, there might still not be enough garden space, and so we have to figure out what to do with that. And the other thing that I think I should raise is that even if we do even once we've designed all of these solutions, once the house is actually up and running, we might have calculated things incorrectly. And so there might be times where we're like, oh, okay, that didn't work out so well. And then we have to, rejig it. And so I'm sure, I'm almost entirely certain that there will be times when I'm worried about my water running low, and then times where I'm worried about there being too much water for me to get rid of. And this is why I'm working with the council to use this as a proof of concept, it's like a trial that will demonstrate which things work and which things didn't, so that then when other people want to do this in the future, that we'll have figured out, where all the pain points are and what didn't work and didn't work. So yeah, I'm really trying to manage my own expectations that once the house is up and running, that there's going to be times when our solution for, everything doesn't work. And that could be all of those things don't work at the same time. So maybe the water and the off-grid electricity and all of the sewage stuff, it might be a trifecta and all three things go wrong at the same time. So if I manage my expectations on that front, then hopefully I'm not going to be too cranky when everything goes wrong.
Yeah. So you're currently looking for a water engineer, yes?
Yes, absolutely. I really need somebody to help me with this water recycling solution. And I think, I mentioned that there are so many moving parts. So, somebody who understands the actual science of water recycling, but that also has experience with how that all integrates with water tanks and pumps, and somebody who's up for a challenge, because this is a small space. So somebody who's super persistent, I think, would be my utopia.
And so you have had people look at the problem before, and what's the trouble? What are you guys up against that's the trouble?
So the biggest problem is the cost part of it. So part of the brief is that I want this to be accessible by most people who are doing a renovation. So if I want most people who live in the city to think about doing this, it can't be excessively expensive. And so it needs to be, kind of comparable to a normal renovation. So, if you're renovating your house, why not do this as well? Because it's not going to cost you that much more. And actually, in the long run, it'll save you money if you're not paying for electricity and sewage and water and all of that kind of thing. And so the issue to date is that some of the solutions provided have been prohibitively expensive, and so we've got that hurdle to deal with, and I'm convinced that it can be done. We just need to work hard to figure it out, I think.
Nice. Do you have a time frame for when you'd like it all to come together?
Yeah, so we're putting in the next iteration of our development application, and when I say we, that's myself and the team, in the next month or so, I think. And then I would really like the build to be finished by the end of the year, and whether that includes the full water recycling solution or not, I think is a big question. But either way, I want the house to be built preferably before September, because we have an event called Sustainable House Day in Australia, which happens in September every year. So it would be really great to have the house done by then, and then have people come through and talk about, what things have worked to date and which things we're still working on, and all of that kind of thing. Great.
So talk about the prefab portion of it.
Yeah, so prefab, I just think it's the way to go. So it means that you can build your house off-site, and And that means that you can control a lot more of the variables. You can control how all of the elements fit together. And so, you know, the final product will be a lot more efficient, and, you know, the construction will be a lot higher quality. But the other thing is that in prefab homes, you can be more specific about the types of materials that you want to use. So, you know, I can specify what type of timbers I want to use. And the other thing which was really surprising was that with Paul Adams, who's the architect and owner of the prefab company that I'm using, he's actually allowing me to demolish my house, take lots and lots of the elements that we've demolished, and then use them in the prefab build, which is really, I just didn't think that was going to be possible. But you know, he says it is, and we're definitely working with the designer to do that. And so I've been, you know, pleasantly surprised on that front, because you know, I just had this image of prefab being, okay, you just kind of you buy it and that's what you get. But yeah, it's definitely not like that.
So
And the other, oh, sorry, you go.
So they're going to take down portions of the house and then build it into the prefab structure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So there's an old bookshelf in the house that we're going to work. The designer and the designer's Denby Dowling and the architect Paul are working together to take, you know, that bookshelf and then turn it into a feature in the new place. And yeah, we're working out what to do with a lot of the bricks and some of the tiles. You know, whether we can crush them up and use those things somehow. And yeah, I think I'm really lucky to have found these two people, because they're just kind of going the extra mile to help me do these things. And you know, these things are complicated and they add complexity to what they're doing. So yeah, I really appreciate their efforts on that front.
How'd you find them?
I did lots and lots and lots of Google stalking, and and then kind of sent Denby and Paul an email that specified exactly what I wanted to do, extremely detailed. And I figured if I sent that kind of email to somebody that said, I want to do all of these crazy things, and it was very detailed, and they responded and said that they were up for the challenge instead of putting it into the too hard basket. So that was a pretty good indication that that's the kind of person that I would want to work with.
Oh, that's great. So what kind of advice would you give to people who are looking to do this about putting together a team?
So I think definitely look on my website and look at the, you know, step-by-step instructions. I'm also open to, you know, people emailing me and asking those kinds of questions, because I figure, you know, I'm making all of these mistakes and I've made lots, trust me, Melissa, and I'm more than happy to pass on the tips about, you know, what not to do, because I've got a long list of those things. But I think if you are very specific about what it is that you want to do, then it's much easier for those service providers to understand what it is that you're trying to achieve. And then I think the other piece of advice that I think is really important is to have those providers talk to each other, because it's a total solution. So you know, I need Denby and Paul to talk to each other, because everything's interrelated, and the solution needs to be something that everyone agrees on, because everybody depends on each other's part kind of working. But yeah, I have lots and lots of steps on how to, you know, the first things that you need to do, engaging a planner, the order that you should do things. Keep in mind though, the order that I have on the page so far is my experience as of now. So as I go along and I make more mistakes, I might revise that. But hopefully, I think, you know, the big ticket items, I think the ordering's pretty good at the moment.
Excellent. So did we finish talking about the water engineering? I think I interrupted you. You were going to say something.
No, that's pretty much it. I think yeah, I think if there's anybody out there who has experience in this area, I definitely want to hear from you, because I'm really open to hearing thoughts. And it's the crazier it is, definitely tell me, because if it's innovative, maybe I should use the word innovative instead of crazy. The more innovative it is, then that's something I want to hear, because I just really want to figure this out. I'm just hoping that we can do this, and then other people can copy it.
Yeah. Are you feeling at all, because it's taking longer than you would have hoped, is it frustrating at all, or do you like the process and the research and being able to provide that for people?
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating, but when I started the project, I definitely managed my own expectations. I knew that there were going to be struggles. I knew that, I'd invest money in things and it would go nowhere, and I'd, come up against roadblocks. And so I went into this knowing that it was definitely not going to be easy. And I really do love doing the research and learning things. And what I'm trying to do is, all of the things that I've learned, I'm trying to then, I guess, explain those things in easily understood ways as well. So I know there's lots and lots of information to overcome when you're trying to do these things. So you're showing the solar page at the moment. And so what I've done here is I've tried to explain how you should make the decision with respect to your solar solution and the different avenues, and then done some, cost projections of the different approaches that you could take, just to give you an idea of how much it costs, what the payback period is, and that kind of thing, so that people can say, okay, well, these are the 3 different ways that I could do it, and these are the costs and benefits, and just try to make it as easy as possible for people, because it is an overwhelming thing to do if you don't have that guidance.
Certainly. Let's see, let's talk about sewage and waste.
Yeah, so this one, at first I was going to have a composting toilet, and a lot of people, ask me, why do you want to be disconnected from the sewage grid? It's because I think we don't really think about how much of an impact our waste has on the environment. So you've got to build all of this infrastructure, all of these treatment plants. A lot of the time, our waste actually gets pumped out into the ocean. So I don't think many people realise that. And if instead we just dealt with our own waste on site, we wouldn't have to build all of that infrastructure. Government wouldn't be spending billions and billions on that infrastructure either. So we'd potentially be saving money. Then we don't have to use all of those chemicals to treat all of that waste. And and then we can avoid doing really horrible things like pumping it out into the water. I mentioned that at first I was looking at a composting toilet, but that requires a little bit of space, which I don't have. So I then stumbled across this incinerating toilet, and the first thing I really like about it is that it's called Cinderella, which I think is hilarious. And but the second thing that I like about it is that I don't need any space other than the space for the toilet. And so what it does is it takes what you do there, so it takes all your waste and then on fire. And then kind of every 10 days, I think, or a week or so, it just produces a cup of ash, which you then put into the bin. So you can't use that on the garden. But that's, the perfect solution for me. Of course, then it uses electricity. So I have to, work this solution in with my solar provider, Roland Lawrence. And as I mentioned, everything's interconnected and interrelated. And so every solution depends on all the other solutions as well.
So is the energy consumption by the Cinderella significant or not?
It is quite significant, but we've done the calculations, and it looks like it's going to be fine with the energy that I can harness from the roof. And again, you know, with all of these things, though, it's trial and error. So it could be that maybe it uses more, it uses less, but I'll just have to see.
It looks awesome. I watched the video and I'm sold. You can use it for RVs and traveling vehicles as well.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, so interior design, tell us about how you're making your decisions here.
Yeah, so I visit a lot of sustainable houses here in Australia, and a lot of them have kind of, I guess, ignored the aesthetics part of the design. And for me, I actually think that's really, really, really important, because sustainability has this perception that it's daggy, or that you can't live in a beautiful home, and that you have to make livability sacrifices. You know, I think a lot of people, when they think about sustainability, they think about camping, or, you know, having to go out the back to the toilet out the back that's not connected to the property. And so I really want to prove that you can live in an off-grid house, and that it's beautiful, and that it's functional, and that it looks nice, and that it's got all of the same features as a modern home. And I'm really not sacrificing any of those livability things.
Fantastic. I'm so excited about your project. What you're trying to do is huge. And so I wanted to ask you if there's anything else that anybody watching who's interested in this kind of thing, what could we do to help you to move it forward? Are there other things besides the water engineering portion?
Yeah, I'd really love to hear if there's other people that are, you know, considering this kind of thing, or doing it, or have done it. You know, if I don't have to reinvent the wheel, then that would be fantastic. Ideas, suggestions, questions from anybody that's done the whole thing, or even parts of it. Absolutely don't want to be doing this completely on my own, because I'm sure there's all of those clever people out there that have done parts of this, or all of it, that could help me out. Yeah, the get in touch page, yeah, go through there, send me an email, hit me up. Absolutely love to hear from people.
Great. So you can find Dr. Laura at theimpossiblehouse.com, and she's got this contact page here. And hopefully there'll be more information that people can get in touch with you and see media stuff. You said there was possibly a Netflix or some kind of video thing that might be coming together?
Yeah, there's a documentary team following the project. I'm not sure, you know, if it'll get picked up by Netflix. That would be great. But again, I want to manage my expectations. But I'm, you know, also looking to maybe publish a book, or my goal is just to make this as accessible as possible to as many people. You know, I don't want to be charging people for access to the information, so that's why I've got this website, and I'm just putting everything there for everybody. And you know, if I could see, you know, 100 other impossible houses out there, then I feel like it would be a success, and that would be really, really great.
Very cool. Well, we will certainly be following your progress on this and wish you the best of luck. Thank you everyone for joining us. If you like what you've seen here, subscribe below, and we'll be back with another interview soon. Thanks for joining us.